Tyler Herro to the Celtics. What nobody dares to say about the NBA's most explosive rumor. Asterisk. What if I told you that the most unexpected offseason twist might involve the Boston Celtics not just stealing a star, but doing it right under the nose of their fiercest rival? What if the Miami Heat's most reliable scorer, their franchise face of the future, was one phone call away from putting on green and white? It sounds like fiction, but behind closed doors is becoming a scenario too calculated to ignore. Tyler Herro, the Heat's 25-year-old all-star guard, might be heading to Boston, not to Phoenix, not to Brooklyn, not to a rebuilding team desperate for scoring, but to the one franchise that has shattered Miami's hopes more than once and knows exactly how to capitalize on instability. There's no need to rehash Herro's scoring numbers or the fact that he led Miami through an injury-ridden year. That's obvious. What isn't obvious is how delicate his situation has become. Herro wants a long-term payday, Miami uncertain. Their roster is aging, direction unclear. And there's no franchise cornerstone in sight to carry the team into the post-Butler era. Herro's value will never be higher than it is today. That's not just a contract situation, it's a pressure cooker. Meanwhile, in Boston, something colder is brewing. Not chaos, but precision. And thrown max contracts at risk. Brad Stevens has been silent. Too silent, the Celtics don't leak, they calculate. And this move. It's the kind of high-stakes gamble they take when the entire league thinks they're done. The reported three-team deal is wild on paper, but behind it lies a clear strategy. Herro lands in Boston. Some draft capital sweeten the pot, and Sacramento picks up Anthony Simons, completing a triangle of needs. At first glance, but look deeper, Herro's game is built for Boston's system. He's not just a shooter, he's a rhythm weapon. Someone who could split defenses when Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown get blitzed. Someone who brings half-court creation that the Celtics have craved in high-leverage playoff minutes. This isn't about swapping players. This is about shifting power. Think about what it means for Miami to send their best player to the team that has eliminated them twice in the last 3 years. Think about the psychological shift that would bring. Stronger, they'd do it while hollowing out the one team that knows how to beat them in the postseason. The league is sleeping on this possibility, but that's how Boston likes it. While everyone is watching Lillard rumors, Harden's future, or the next big market swing, the Celtics might already be setting up the most devastating roster tweak of the entire offseason. There's something deeper here too. Stevens doesn't make moves to trend. He makes moves that win titles. Young, playoff-tested, used to the spotlight, hungry, underappreciated. That sounds familiar. That sounds like someone who, in Boston's system, could explode. So here's the real question. If the Celtics manage to pull this off, how many teams in the East are actually built to survive them? You'd be adding a 20-point scorer to the best defense in basketball, with the two best wings in the conference, an elite coaching staff, and a front office that's never satisfied. In Boston is not just about making the roster better, it's about sending a message to every team that thought the Celtics were done dealing. It's about showing that even after reaching the mountaintop, Boston is still hungry, still watching, still ready to strike. This could be the move nobody saw coming, that everyone will regret not stopping. Keep your eyes on the silence. That's where the Celtics operate best. Not in noise, but in precision. Not in panic, but in planning. The league thinks it understands Boston. But Boston doesn't play to be understood. It plays to win. And if Tyler Herro is truly on their radar, then the rest of the East should be afraid. Very afraid. There's a name buried beneath the headlines, quietly preparing for something that could change the trajectory of the Celtics' future without anyone truly realizing it. While the spotlight has hovered over Jason Tatum's rise, Derek White's extension, and the blockbuster shifts in Boston's frontcourt, a silent transformation has been unfolding behind the scenes. And it's time to ask the question nobody's asking loud enough yet. What if Neemias Queta is the answer nobody sees coming? This summer, while fans and analysts debated Porzingis' injury timeline or Horford's uncertain return, Queta made a move that slipped under nearly every radar. He underwent arthroscopic knee surgery, a procedure that might sound routine on the surface, but beneath it lies a story years in the making. This wasn't a reaction to a sudden issue, it was a decision rooted in pain, patience, and the desire to unleash a version of himself that the NBA hasn't seen yet. Queta revealed to CLNS Media's Bobby Manning that he had been managing discomfort in his left knee for multiple seasons. He had been playing through it, pushing his body to perform in a system that demanded physicality, agility, and resilience, all while quietly carrying something that could have derailed his future. And yet, it didn't, because he refused to let Instead, he waited for the perfect moment to take control of his health, and when Boston's season ended in May, he finally chose the knife over denial, the recovery over risk. But here's what makes this more than a medical update. Surgery didn't sideline him for long. By July, Queta was back on the court, already in conditioning and ramping up for what could be the most important preseason of his life. Not because his job is on the line, but because a window is suddenly opening, and there's a void in the Celtics front court that is begging for someone to claim it. Porzingis was shipped to Atlanta. Kornet signed with San Antonio. Horford, legendary in leadership and experience, is not expected to return. Suddenly, the same rotation that once left Queta fighting for minutes is now wide open. And with his knee finally fixed, his body finally aligned, and his confidence finally peaking, Queta is quietly stepping into that gap. The numbers from last season already hinted at something brewing. He appeared in 62 games, set career highs, and averaged nearly 14 minutes per game in a championship-level system. He was no longer a two-way novelty or depth insurance. He was part of the machine, contributing 5 points and 3.8 rebounds per game in limited minutes, often during critical stretches when size and toughness were needed. But forget the box scores. They never told the full story with Queta. Him valuable wasn't just his stat line, but the raw physical presence he brought whenever he stepped on the floor. His instincts on defense, his ability to contest without fouling, the way he ran the floor like a player half his size, and the timing he developed with Boston's core guard sit was all real. It was all noticed, just not by the masses. Now, with the Celtics heading into a new season without 3 of their rotation bigs, Queta isn't just a luxury. He might be a necessity, and that changes everything. He's already working with Maine, Celtics assistant coach Taj Ridley, reconditioning his body, rebuilding his athleticism, fine-tuning his movement patterns. But this isn't about rehab anymore. This is about reinvention. According to Queta, his confidence is soaring not because of what he's done, but because of how much more he's about to do. He knows the work he's put in. He knows the hours logged behind closed doors, and he believes it's about to explode into something visible. But why should Celtics fans care? Because Boston might be about to unleash a version of Queta that no one in the NBA has prepared for. A 7-footer with elite footwork, refined timing, and finally, a clean bill of health. A player who's tasted the intensity of playoff basketball, absorbed the teachings of a championship core, and now walks into camp with opportunity and purpose. Eurobasket looms, and Queta expects to represent Portugal on August 27th, a sign that his body is not only healed, but ready for competition. And if he dominates there, the message will be impossible to ignore. Boston has a wild card, one that's not being discussed in power rankings or projected lineups, but one that may become unavoidable by midseason. What he's already feeling in August, the Celtics won't just have depth, they'll have something far more dangerous. They'll have unpredictability. They'll have power in a position that's been questioned all offseason. And they'll have a 26-year-old center entering his prime with something to prove and nothing left to hold him back. Neemias Queta may not be the headline today, but ask yourself, what happens when a fully healthy, fully confident 7-footer emerges from the shadows of the NBA's deepest roster and starts demanding attention? What if the most important upgrade Boston made this offseason wasn't a signing or a trade, but a surgery followed by silence? What if the quietest Celtic is about to make the loudest noise of all? One move Boston should have made in the 2025 offseason and why it could still haunt them there. Is one move the Boston Celtics could have made this summer that wouldn't have broken the bank, wouldn't have compromised their long-term vision, and wouldn't have required a dramatic shift in philosophy. But it could have saved their season, and they didn't make it. After Jason Tatum's Achilles tear sent shockwaves through the organization and effectively slammed shut the championship window they had been prying open for years, Brad Stevens acted swiftly. He pivoted, not toward panic, but toward preservation. In came cheaper contracts, flexibility, and youth. Out went Kristaps, Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, Luke Kornet. What stayed? A glaring hole in the middle of the court. Has no legitimate starting caliber center. Not one. And even more shocking, they had one in their building who fit everything they needed. And he's still waiting. Charles Bassey was never supposed to be a franchise-altering player, but that's the point. He didn't need to be. He just needed to exist as a presence in the paint, a rim protector, a rebounder, a body. With Boston's front court gutted and no one stepping into the vacuum, Bassey should have been signed immediately after the Summer League, but he wasn't, and that silence is deafening. Why? Why pass on a player who already knows your system, who played with fire in Vegas, who comes at a bargain, and fills the most obvious need on your roster? Why let this linger when the margin for error has never been smaller? Boston's decision to prioritize cap space and planning over immediate contention made sense after Tatum's injury. No one can blame them for recalibrating, but letting the center position rot was never part of any intelligent plan. It was an oversight and a risky one. Right now, the Celtics are staring down a season where Neemias Queta and Luka Garza are the only true centers on the depth chart. Queta has shown flashes, but is still raw and foul-prone. Garza is slow-footed and exposed in space. And Xavier Tillman, while tough and versatile, is barely 6 even inches and better suited to backup power forward duties. This is not sustainable. Meanwhile, Bassi is available, waiting, hopeful. According to Celtics blog, he's still open to signing in Boston, but international teams are circling. Every day he remains unsigned, at a level of structural integrity that the Celtics currently lack. He would offer resistance at the rim, energy on the boards, a pulse in the paint. And in a league where size remains king, that's not optional. It's foundational. About it, with Horford and Porzingis gone, the Celtics didn't just lose size. They lost IQ, leadership, spacing, defensive communication. They lost options, they lost control. Bassi doesn't replace all of that, but he gives you a chance to stay upright while Tatum recovers. Without someone like him, Boston is one twisted ankle away from fielding G League bigs against Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo. And here's the hidden cost. Even if the Celtics don't plan to push for a title this year, every minute that Brown, Simons, or White spend playing next to a makeshift frontcourt diminishes their rhythm and value. Every game played without a real center weakens the system that this team spent years building, and that echoes beyond one season. Boston had the blueprint, they had the clarity, they had the moment, but they missed the move. It wasn't a splashy trade, it wasn't a blockbuster, it was a simple decision. Sign Charles Bassi. Sign anyone with size, grit, and NBA minutes. Goga Bitadze, Bismack, Biyombo, hell, even a flyer on a D-League standout would have been something. But the silence remains. And silence isn't always strategic. Sometimes it's just dangerous. Maybe Stevens still has a card to play. Maybe Boston is lining something up behind the curtain. But every day without action leaves the team more vulnerable. Not just physically, but psychologically. Because when your players look around and realize no one's there to anchor the middle, doubt creeps in, confidence erodes, and identity fades. This isn't about panic, this is about foresight. A team like Boston doesn't rebuild, it reloads. But to reload, you need every part. And right now, one piece is missing. The offseason is not over. The window is narrowing. And if the Celtics don't fill the gap soon, the entire structure could begin to bend. Sin, Bassi. Start patching the foundation. For what was supposed to be a reset comes a collapse.